Once upon a time, in a crowded town where narrow streets were always busy and voices never truly slept, there lived a young man named Ravion. From the outside, Ravion looked like many others, quiet eyes, careful steps, and a face that tried to hide its worries. But inside him lived a conflict that had been growing since childhood. Ravion was a thief. Not because he was born bad, and not because hunger forced him, but because somewhere along his journey, the wrong lessons were allowed to grow unchecked. Ravion lived with his mother, Maelra, in a small, worn house at the edge of the town. She loved her son deeply, more than she loved comfort or peace. When Ravion was a child, she worked long hours and returned home tired, often too tired to correct him when he crossed small lines. When Ravion took a coin from a neighbor's table as a boy, Maelra noticed. Instead of stopping him, she smiled weakly and said nothing. She believed love meant protection, even from consequences. She did not realize that silence can teach louder lessons than words. As Ravion grew older, small thefts became habits. Habits became identity. Each time he returned home with stolen goods, Maelra turned her face away from the truth. She told herself that the world was unfair and that her son was simply surviving. Ravion, watching her reactions, learned something dangerous, that actions without correction feel like approval. His emotional compass slowly lost direction. At first, Ravion felt fear when he stole. His heart raced, his hands shook, but over time, fear turned into confidence. Confidence turned into pride. He began to believe he was smarter than others, faster than the law, stronger than guilt. He laughed with friends who admired his skill. Yet, late at night, when silence returned, something heavy sat on his chest. He did not understand it then, but it was his conscience asking to be heard. One night, after a particularly risky theft, Ravion returned home shaken. Guards had been close. For the first time in years, he had almost been caught. He expected anger, worry, or at least questions from his mother, but Maelra only asked if he was hungry. Ravion felt relief, but also something else, confusion. Part of him wanted her to stop him. Part of him wanted to be saved from himself.
Years passed, and Ravion became known across the town. His name was whispered with fear. His mother heard those whispers too, but she closed her ears. She believed that as long as her son returned home alive, nothing else mattered. She did not see that love without guidance can become silent harm. One morning, Ravion was finally caught. This time, there was no escape. He was dragged through the same streets he once ruled with confidence. People watched him with judgment, disappointment, and pity. When Maelra heard the news, her legs trembled. She rushed to see him, her heart breaking at the sight of chains on her son's hands. Ravion was sentenced to death for his crimes. On the day of execution, he asked to see his mother one last time. When Maelra approached, tears streaming down her face, Ravion looked at her with eyes full of emotion, anger, sadness, love, and regret all mixed together. He leaned close and whispered that he wanted to tell her something important. As Maelra moved closer, Ravion suddenly bit her ear hard enough to make her cry out in pain. Guards pulled him back in shock. The crowd gasped. Everyone thought this was cruelty, madness, or hatred. But Ravion raised his voice, calm but heavy with truth. "I am not biting my mother because I hate her," he said. "I am biting her because she never stopped me when she should have. When I stole as a child, she stayed silent. When I grew worse, she stayed silent. Her silence taught me that my actions were acceptable. Today, I die not only because I stole, but because no one taught me how to control myself. The town fell silent. Myra collapsed, understanding too late the cost of her choices. Ravion continued, his voice steady despite the chains. Parents do not ruin children by being strict. They ruin them by being afraid to correct them. Love without discipline is not kindness. It is neglect.
In that moment, Ravion showed more emotional intelligence than he ever had in freedom. He took responsibility, but he also revealed the truth that character is shaped early and guidance matters. Self-control is not something we are born with. It is something we are taught, practiced, and protected. As Ravion was led away, his words stayed behind, echoing in the minds of everyone who heard them. Parents looked at their children differently. They understood that correction is not rejection, and boundaries are not cruelty. They are protection. Ravion's life ended, but his message lived on. His story became a quiet warning passed from one generation to the next. It reminded people that emotional intelligence begins at home, that silence can shape destiny, and that love must include responsibility. And so, the story of the thief and his mother was remembered not as a tale of crime, but as a lesson of self-control, guidance, and the heavy price of ignored mistakes. Because the most dangerous theft is not stealing from others, but stealing a child's chance to learn what is right before it is too late.